Welcome to What's a Beautiful Life Anyway? I'm your host, Jill Bennett. This is the channel that shares ideas to help you live your best life, because life can be beautiful if you live consciously. Welcome to this episode of What's a Beautiful Life Anyway? Now, to live our best and most beautiful life, we should live as consciously as we can. And my guest today is Monica Haughey, who is the founder of the School of Conscious Living. And she's a transformational coach who recognizes your potential and can assist you and your organization to effect desired change. Monica, welcome.
Thank you, Jill. Great to meet you today. Thank you.
No, it's lovely to have you here. Monica, you are a highly experienced psychotherapist and coach with a passion to assist individuals and groups in seeing possibilities and thinking beyond their current horizons. And we all know people can get very, very stuck, can't they, in their day-to-day, not thinking outside the box, not thinking of what they could do. We're going to talk today about creative entrepreneurship. So what is creative entrepreneurship?
Thanks, Jill. I see creative entrepreneurship as a step that most of us are wanting to take now. So many people have been sort of doing the same thing, or maybe stuck in a job that they're not really enjoying, or perhaps at the top of an organization, and realize that they are more entrepreneurial and more innovators than they are following a company and following a manager. So I think that more and more people are wanting to step into their own creativity. And by entrepreneurship, I mean taking charge of your life, deciding what are your values, what do you want to achieve, what do you want to do, what are your strengths, what are your experiences. So it's about entrepreneurial around getting into the driving seat of your own life, and creative is let's do it in our way, in the way that makes sense to us. And I was just at a Women in Business talk last night, and this woman was talking about the various, as somebody who's done a businessman who's done a study of the different kinds of entrepreneurship. And he was talking about people, say, legacy entrepreneurs who are business people or shopkeepers because their parents were shopkeepers. And then there were the blue sky entrepreneurs who had a vision. And the kind of entrepreneurs I want to work with is people who want to make the world a better place, but also want to do what's good for them and what's lined up to who they are and what their strengths and talents and passions are. So I hope that answers us.
Yes.
So that's why it's creativity and entrepreneurship together.
Yes, yeah, and I think it's I know certainly from me, I was in the corporate world for 32 years, and when you first leave, it is quite daunting, isn't it, to suddenly you're not having people give you work and tell you what to do. You've got to think for yourself. But it's, I absolutely love it. I love the fact that I'm in the driving seat for my life now, and everything I do is for me and my clients. I love to serve people. I love to give. I love to help people.
And I do think, Jill, now is the time for this, that more and more people, we particularly can see it in the 20s, 30 somethings, are saying, well, I don't know that I want to work a 40, 50 or 60-hour week. What I love to do is to serve for, I have a client who's working in a school because she wants to go off to New Zealand and become a master rock climber. Why not? Not?
Yeah. And you're right. I think certainly the millennials, I mean, there's no way they'd work. When we wanted to progress in a career, when we first started out in the world of work, for me, you never got noticed unless you were in the office for 10 hours a day plus. And there's no way the millennials will do that. They will work an 8-hour day if they're pushed to do it, because their brains are always elsewhere and they're wanting to do things that they really love. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So it is really, really important in life. Do you think we need courage to be an entrepreneur?
Yes, I think so. I mean, in my groups, I work with people around where they are now, where they'd love to go, what they'd love to create for their lives. And then we look at, so what do you need to get there? And definitely, obviously you need people who can help you, whether it's mentors or support people or allies. But you need courage, it's like, we've sold our house last year on renting, and I was looking for a house the other day, and I was thinking, this is hard trying to find a new house. We've sold our family home, and it takes courage. Like you've up by ended your life. And it takes
Yeah.
courage to do that. And we do need to come out of our comfort zones to actually implement change.
Yeah. And I think I've always been the sort of person that pushes myself outside my comfort zone. So
Yeah,
even when I was in the corporate world, I was working up in the Midlands in an office in quite a junior role. There was a chance of promotion, but I had to move to London. And
yeah,
everyone's like, oh, you're not going to, you don't know anyone there. What are you going to do? I did it. I
yeah.
never looked back. And then, I moved around from department to department until I was with the Foreign Office. I traveled the world,
Uh-huh.
auditing British embassies and high commissions. And again, to make those moves, to swap departments just to get the next step on the career ladder was not something most people would do. And
Yeah.
then, of course, I had my children very late. I was 38 when I had my first child and 42 when I had my second, because I was enjoying my career. And then when I got to 50, I walked away and I was like, no, this is interfering too much with raising my children. And that's when I started looking at something else. So I think you're right. You do need courage, but let's just say the more you do it and the more you step outside your comfort zone, the easier it gets, I think.
Yeah, but that's interesting when your story is similar to mine around kids and trying to sort of juggle both the career and being a parent and obviously loving your child. And what struck me is that, yeah, and that's when I gave up my full-time permanent pensionable job when I had a child. And but I think courage, literally it comes from the word, the French word cœur, heart. And that's, if we can tune into our heart, that's where the courage comes from, because that's how you made those leaps, And likewise for me, that's why I rang up HR and said, actually, I'm not coming in. They were saying, we're going to have to bring you in. You can't just go from parental leave, maternity leave to resigning. And so we're going to have to bring you in. Nobody was going to bring me anywhere. But it was like the courage, like listen to my heart that
Yeah.
I knew. Now, obviously, some people's heart will say, no, we need to, we'll tell them different things. And this isn't about being a stay-at-home mother or not. There's no right or wrong. It's very much an individual thing. But it's what's in our heart, what's our heart's desire. And that really cuts through a lot and really helps us make these changes that we're being called to make. And I think as COVID and lockdown, there's been huge transformation. I know you two are interested in astrology, and it's like it's really structures are all changing, and really it's a wonderful opportunity for us to step into who we are and what's our heart's desire and what are our little courageous from our heart's next steps.
Yeah. Yeah. Just focusing inside yourself, be present in the moment,
Yeah,
and listen to your inner
exactly.
being, listen to your
Yeah,
higher self. What is it that you want? And
yeah,
it's not always clear. I still sometimes think, because as you say, we made the big upheaval to move from the UK to
yeah,
Mallorca, and I still sometimes think, oh, am I in the right place? And the answer is nearly always yes. I
yeah,
very, and if I'm missing the UK, I just go home for a few weeks.
yeah.
But generally, yeah, I'm very happy here. But we do need, you're right, to listen to our heart. What's our soul telling us? What's best for
Exactly, yeah.
us?
And often we talk over that, like my own mentor was saying the other day. It's like, your husband talking over your favorite Netflix series. We all do that. We talk over ourselves, like, what
Yeah,
do you think you're doing? This is crazy, nobody else is doing this, or this, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too whatever, not
yeah.
qualified enough, whatever. People have all sorts of um stories that they tell themselves that hold themselves back.
Yeah, and there's the whole chimp paradox, isn't there? If you've
Yeah,
read Steve Peters' book, where
yeah,
you've got this little chimp in your head, some people call it the psycho parrot. That's
yeah,
always the negative thing. No, I can't do that. Who do I think I am?
exactly.
As you say, I'm too old or whatever. Do you think anyone can become creative?
Yes, I think that probably we're all naturally creative. And if you look at a child, coloring or playing, there's no end to their creativity. And it's funny, my children, I've recently remembered that I never taught them to color, the coloring in books. I never told them how to color inside the lines. Because I'm such an outside the box thinker. I mean, why do we teach children to actually color inside the lines?
Yeah,
And it was
I
only a
never thought
friend
of
of
that.
mine visiting the house told my eldest daughter, Katie, you should actually color inside the lines. And she says, I'm so grateful to Brendan for telling us to color inside the lines. But creativity is coloring outside the lines as well.
Yeah.
Creativity is filling the page of our piece of paper or our lives with what we want to do, what we'd love to do. So can any be creative? Yeah, I think sadly education does sort of, and coloring in does sort of restrict our brains, but I do think that we're more and more people are allowing that sort of creative side, and there more people are getting into nature and meditating and yoga and doing various things which can really open us up and nourish our creativity.
Yeah, yeah. But I know what you mean about the restrictions of lines because it's true, isn't it? We try, and children are born creative, free beings. They have no
Yes,
hang-ups, and then
yes,
they're put into the education system, which in my view is broken.
yes, yes,
I mean, also if you read Sir Ken Robinson's book, Finding Your
yeah,
Element,
yeah,
he
yeah.
gives a great TED talk as well on education
That's
and how
right.
the education
Yeah.
system is wrong. But you're right, we all have different strengths, and it's not putting people in a box and saying you must colour inside the lines. So I think you did the right thing, actually.
Although they were glad that our friend Brendan told them that the right thing is to colour inside.
Oh dear. Why do you think you've already sort of touched on why it's important at the moment, or more important for us, for us to engage in our creativity, but why is it so more important now that we do this?
Yeah. Well, we've all had the experience of disruption and lockdown and threats of war and threats of nuclear war. And we all have a sense that the world is changing, and we all have different perspectives around what's happening. And it doesn't really matter. But what is very clear to me that the world as we knew it isn't anymore. And like our parents' generation, we're in Catholic Ireland. My parents knew that they had to work hard, say their prayers, and hope they went to heaven at the end. Yeah, that's how people lived. They lived, or my mother used to come down to Dublin, got to mention that's where I live. And you think, why are people all having their lunches at 3 o'clock? Like, why didn't they have them at 1? Now everything's changed. People do whatever, don't have lunch, fasts, etc., etc. It's all changed, right? But so I think that we're really at a juncture in our evolution. And as you know, the astrologers back this up. We had for the last, I don't know how, Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto was shifting all the structures, so we saw a lot of collapse. And now we have Pluto in Aquarius. It's been in and out, I understand. But that's for the astrologers. But what I do know and experience and see with my client work and with the groups that I work with is that more and more people are wanting to be creative and make it up, design their lives themselves. And I think that as the faith in these institutions that we once knew and trusted, it used to be if the teacher said, well, then it was right. Or if the bank manager said, then it was right. Or the scout leader. And in Ireland, we have a lot of inquiries and, looking into what really happened back then. But so there's been a lot of shakiness around the structures, and I think so it's a wonderful time now for us to step into our own creativity and be co-creators of a new future. And it's the new values, as I see it, is about creativity, about collaboration, and it's not about competition. There's enough for all of us, and
Yeah,
let's really step into our own fullness of our potential. Does that sound
yeah.
good?
Yeah, no, that is good. And you're right that there's plenty to go round. So it
Yeah,
is collaborating, it's helping others, it's,
yeah.
it is looking after fellow man. And talking of astrology, I don't know whether you've ever heard of Yasmin Bolan, but
Oh, you
she,
mentioned her. I looked at her. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, I mean, her diary is great because this week we have a new moon, but she'll
Okay.
always tell you it's a new moon eclipse in Aquarius, and then there's, a couple of pages on what that means, and
Oh, very good.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
also
listen. Yeah.
how it affects you depending on your
Exactly.
time and place of birth.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's quite fascinating. I love when there's a new
It
moon.
is. It is good. And Pam Gregory also is very good, but she always emphasizes that it's so important to listen into ourselves as well, and to basically, the astrology is like the notes, and we can play the notes in whichever way we want, and we still have possibilities, and we can design ourselves. But yes, it is so interesting. I mean, I don't know whether your listeners are into astrology, but I would have done psychotherapy for years and done a lot of work on myself. And then you discover, actually, no matter how many hours you spend talking to a therapist, some of it is actually how we are in the world and our blueprint,
Yeah,
a
yeah,
guy would have a natural tendency to think outside the box and to think of new possibilities. And I think that's why I naturally didn't teach my kids to draw inside the line, because that's my Uranus in the first house on the North Node, so
yeah,
it's very naturally sort of wanting to look at how we could do things differently. And I
yeah.
think that now's the
And
time, yeah.
yeah. There is that innate sort of abilities or
Yeah,
um, personality and qualities that we have, and it's sort of
yeah,
innate. I'm a Pisces, but with
yeah,
Sagittarius rising, and I am so into helping people. I just want to help people all the time.
yeah,
And I've got to the stage now in my life where I have to hold back
yeah,
because honestly, I get so many people ringing me saying, "Oh, I was told you're the person who can help me with X."
yeah.
And I
That's
love
right.
doing it, but sometimes you just run yourself into the ground
That's right.
because
That's what I mean. That we have our blueprint, but then we have to manage it. Like I would have a
yeah,
tendency to over responsibility, and I've done that for long enough now. So I'm social worker, psychotherapy, etc. So
yeah,
now it's time to, because that's how I am, but I don't have to follow that. We still have choices.
yeah,
You don't have to
yeah.
be like you helping other people all the
No,
time. You can look after yourself as
yeah,
well.
yeah. And I mean, I do now, I love it. I go off 4 yoga classes a week and yoga on
Fantastic.
the beach, and everything that I
Yeah,
fit in now.
great.
And I fit everything else around it, which is great.
Very good. Very good.
So how anyone listening who might want to make some changes in their life, how can they find their next courageous steps?
Well, at an individual lesson, it's about listening in to yourself. And the people, when I advertise my groups, I say, are you feeling a bit dissatisfied or bored or feeling that you have more to do? So you may already be set up in some piece area of work, but you're sort of rumbling, actually, this isn't quite me, this isn't quite what I want to do. Or you just could feel stuck or bored, or maybe you've suddenly been made redundant. But the main thing is to step into, to listen in to what's going on for ourselves. And that's where we'll really sort of find the answers as well. But go back to your question. Sorry, Jill, I think I lost my way there. Sorry.
How can we find those courageous next steps
How
if we
can we
know
find it?
something
Yeah.
isn't right?
So listening in is obviously the first one, but
Yeah,
also you might notice talking to a friend that actually what I'd really love to do is, or find someone, a mentor or a coach, or, I work with people all the time who want to make a change and not quite sure. We don't actually have to know. We don't always know what the next step is. We may just know that we're not happy where we are. We need to make a change.
yeah,
And often people are wary about coming to my groups because they think, oh, I don't really know what I want. I'm in this job and it's only all right. And I really know it's not me. And but that's a start to say that. And then the work I do will be about helping you identify what is that you really want to do. And none of that's fixed. You might change your mind again, But so it's listening in plus getting the support you need. And
yeah, yeah.
the collaborators, the supports.
I think that's so important. And if I think back when I was still with the Foreign Office, I had gone for a really big promotion, which would have put me in the top sort of 3% of the civil servants, so into the senior structure. And I didn't get through. And they said, right, we're going to get you a coach because if we can just change you here, here, and here,
Mhm.
you'll be fine. They got me a coach, and the outcome of that was I realized I was a square peg in a round hole and I wanted to leave. So
Fantastic.
it's finding that, isn't it? And funnily enough, I was interviewed on a radio station. I was just happened to meet this lady at a networking group, and she said, "Would you like to come in and talk to me on my radio show?" And I said, "Yeah." So I did, and my husband and my daughter were listening, and they went, "Oh, you didn't sound at all nervous. Were you nervous, Mum?" And I went, "No, I loved it." And I said, "If I had my time over again, that's what I'd do." Then, of course, I spoke to a friend of mine who, like you, psychotherapist. Um, Coach, you name it, and she does it very similar to you. And she said to me, "Well, why don't you?" And I went, "Oh, come on, I'm like 54." And the outcome of it was she put me in touch with someone in community radio, and within a couple of months, I had my own show on community radio. So,
Fantastic.
but if she hadn't have said that to me, so you're right. If there's anyone listening there who has either doesn't know what they want to do, or there's something that they think maybe they would like to do, but they can't, get in
Mhm.
touch with you.
Yeah.
find some support, someone who can just tease these thoughts out of them, which might help them realize what it is they want to do and where they want to go next in their life. So, yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
fantastic.
And it doesn't have to be heavy or serious, you know. A lot of my groups and the work I do online and in person, it's fun, you know. The more we can lighten up about this,
Yeah.
you know, people think, oh, psychotherapist, that must be very serious. But I've done a lot of the very serious stuff, and I'm much more interested in helping people have fun around this and what do I want to do and what's my dissatisfaction. It doesn't have to be heavy, you know, and the
No,
more,
not
as
at
you know,
all.
like kids discover a lot through having fun and joy and
Yeah. And
expressing.
I think that's the key, isn't it? If you can make it fun in a group
Yeah,
setting, things are going to come out
yes.
because you're more relaxed and you may well find out what it is that you want to do.
I
Um,
recently had a one-day workshop for helping people with their courageous next step. And at the end, we did the cocktail party exercise that I've done myself. And you go around and you say to people, and you future accelerate yourself into the future of what you'll be doing in 5, 10 years' time. So you can go along and say, hello, I'm Monica Haughey, I'm an astronaut. But it's such fun. And people, and it actually consolidates the whole day because we're all having a laugh about
yeah,
what we've just decided we're going to be in 5 or 10 years' time. And but it
yeah.
pulls everything together because people are light about it.
Yeah, which is wonderful. And I've been in things like that where someone will say, it's 10 years time and I'm at a book signing. This is
Yeah,
my
exactly.
this is my
Yeah.
fifth book, and it's a great
Wonderful.
fun thing to do.
I
Yeah,
know, I
really
do.
good.
I'm a best-selling author. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
New York Times best-selling author. Yeah.
So, Monica, what is the significance of community then when you are venturing into some sort of creative entrepreneurship?
Right. Well, I think that naturally, first of all, people want to connect with others, and it's a very natural human thing. Plus, it's very supportive for people to connect with others, like-minded people.
Yeah.
Plus, I think, as I said earlier, but the structures that are collapsing, let's make new ones. Let's find our own tribe of like-minded people who can support us on the journey, you know? So, you know, I'm sure you're involved in various groups, as am I, whatever it is, a meditation or bone strength and yoga, but we're all finding our tribe and our communities. And I think, you know, these days it can be your next door neighbor, but it can also be somebody over in Australia. But it's like building those connections. As human beings, we naturally want to connect. And I suppose personally, I've always been involved in community work and food co-ops and all that, and parents around, as I mentioned, when kids were small, parents around the kitchen table learning how to provide nourishing food for their kids. But it's like that community building and people learning from each other, you know. And remember somebody saying, Harry doesn't eat at lunchtime, I'm a bit worried about him. And someone else says, well, my child never ate at lunchtime and they're absolutely fine. But that's sort of sharing knowledge. You could
Yeah.
read and Google that and talk to your doctor about it. But who really knows whether it's
Yeah.
okay for Johnny not to eat at lunchtime, or, you know, not eat vegetables or whatever? I just think there's so much information that people can have within the groups, you know, and can support each other, you know, particularly around health, Jill, and small kids. You know, I mean, often parents take their kids to the doctor just when they're tired and worn out and have been up several nights with temperatures. And if
Yeah.
they had somebody in the community to say, listen, I can see they're a bit better, or, you know, I know you're tired, let me take them for a couple of hours. But that sort of community resource is so valuable. And
It's
again, particularly at this time.
Yeah, I think it's so important, isn't it? And you're right, the NHS is collapsing. So let's have our own little communities where we
Exactly.
use
Yeah.
our own experiences to help other people.
Yeah.
I mean, here in Mallorca, I came and my husband knew a few people that he'd introduced me to, and I didn't know anyone. I now have a group on WhatsApp that I've set up that has about 65 women in it.
Yeah.
And all the time people are saying, oh, so and so's moving out here now, can we add them to your group? And of course they can.
Yeah, lovely.
And
Yeah.
that group, we meet up once a month for either
Fantastic.
we might go to a vineyard or on a hike or just a coffee or
Amazing.
tapas. But also it's a great resource for anyone who wants to know something. So there's a
Amazing.
couple of ladies moving out and they're saying, oh, does anyone know where I can get X? Does anyone know of a property to rent? And we always there's answers to these questions, and they get the help that they need. So I think it's very powerful to build those communities.
And isn't that so like heartwarming to hear that? And like I have the same in Dublin. If I'm looking for a plumber, I just put into the local, anybody know a good plumber, anybody know a good tiler. It's just such a lovely, informal kind of way of supporting each other, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, no, I think it's lovely. Really nice. Um, so how good, moving into a more sort of entrepreneurial or creative lifestyle can present its own challenges. How can we overcome those challenges so that we get the independence we want in our life?
I think it's support. It's support. It has to be support, and that's what my work is about.
Yeah.
About uh, either people coming to me or whatever coach they want to, but getting the support. You know, and I've always had my own mentor, and every month I'll say, "Well, I managed to get that done, but no, I got a bit stuck in that, or I lost my nerve on the other." Or, you know, I think that by getting the support we need, we can move mountains really. And I think that if you're plowing your own furrow, then you really need the support of the one-to-one or the group. But the groups are amazing because sometimes when I have in a group and you know, when I'm facilitating the group, sometimes what someone else said to the person who's talking is really insightful, or it's not what I would have seen as a facilitator, you know. So it's that power of the group and hearing yourself in a group. And some might, you know, they might say it to me in a one-to-one, but if they said it to a group of 8 or 9 people, it sort of makes more of a mark on yourself, never mind the people who are listening. So I just think support. And as a psychotherapist, we would always talk about support can be external, having a mentor or a group, but it's also to keep supporting yourself, whether through food, yoga, meditation, positive thoughts, nature. I mean, we've all know now that health and well-being is about so much more than just one thing. It's not just a narrow field. It's about what we've
Well,
had for breakfast. It's what we think about what we've had for breakfast, you know? That's
yes,
sort of
yeah,
so the self-support plus the support from your environment. So
yeah. I think you're right. The way you think is much more important than anything in our life,
oh yeah,
really, isn't it?
I think so,
Because
yeah.
we're self-fulfilling prophecies, and if we, you know, sometimes I'm sure you do it like I do, where I think something, and the worst one, well, the worst one was recently with having building work done. The builders have been incredibly amazing, but we need windows and doors which are not standard size. They have to be made, and I
Mhm.
kept saying, they're going to be late, they're going to be late because the order didn't go in on time. And what's happened now? They're not here. And you think, Jill, why didn't you just keep saying, you know, whereas with most things, I know, with most things, you know, my husband will say, oh, we're going into Palmer today. You know, it's market day, there'll be no parking. I go, there will be parking.
Exactly.
A parking space will be there just where we need it. But why did I do that? Not just once, but several times, because of course that's what's delaying it now. So,
Be
well,
careful what you wish for. Be
be
careful what
careful
you
what you
wish
wish
for.
for.
Some of them
Absolutely.
is Marianne
Absolutely.
Williamson or somebody talks about that. How come we can all muster up a parking angel, but when it comes to our lives, it can be harder around my windows will arrive on time.
Yes. Or, you know, I'm going to meet the man of my dreams. People always seem to, you know, I can't tell you how many people I've met where they are, oh, every man I ever meet is this. Well,
Yeah.
stop saying that. You know, stop saying it. Say that
Oh,
you
yeah. And
know,
it's fascinating that the neuroscience now has backs this up, you know, that the power
yeah.
of our thoughts, you know, and Bruce Lipton and Emoto, that guy who could change, showed us how we can change the crystals and glass,
Yes.
but that the neuroscience is all can, it can explain all of that, just to be
Yeah.
careful what you wish for, yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. I love Joe Dispenza's stuff is amazing. And Bruce Lipton,
Yeah.
as you say, it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe just a couple more quick questions. How can we draw on the responsibilities of parenthood and family life to be more creative and more entrepreneurial?
Well, I think my own experience of, well, the practical one of, you know, we don't have to all color in the same way, but I think also around health, I think that really, I really embraced that when my children were small, around how can I be creative about keeping my children healthy. And, you know, and that's how I got involved in the organizing cookery classes, and I wrote a couple of recipe books. But so yeah, I think that I know this, you know, we did take our kids to ballet and to dancing and to swimming and to all of those things. And you do those because everybody else does them. You think, I want to be a good parent too. But I think maybe with the wisdom that I have now, I might think, well, my kids really enjoy that? Or maybe they might have as much fun just playing out the back garden or playing in the local playground. But so I think the parent who does invite us to be creative and to listen to our children and to respond in a way that sort of works for them and us, you know. And I think there is a lot of pressure around being the perfect parent, and particularly for, you know, if you have the resources, then why would you put them into into activities, you know? And you just wonder, our kids being inundated with activities, and I'm sure it's still the same as when I was a parent of younger kids, you know, that but so I think we can be creative, and kids can teach us a lot if we listen, you know. And the classic ones of kids don't need to be taught to meditate, you know. They can watch the raindrops coming down the window just naturally, or they can play for hours in a sand pit if we just leave them, you know. Or I know it's you know, some of the toys are much more structured than they used to be, like Lego, but if we could just let them play and make it up themselves, you know, or play with the boxes most often they like to do, you know.
Yeah,
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 that's it. Parenthood can be a great time to be creative, can't it? And
yeah.
to relax. Probably what I didn't do was relax and think, oh, listen, we'll make this up as we go along and figure it out as we go, you know.
Yeah, there is a lot of pressure on you as a
Yeah,
parent. But I had two children who didn't want to go to all the clubs and the ballet and the, I mean,
interesting.
I sent them, but they then made it quite clear they didn't want to go.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And so they didn't do that many activities, really.
And they came out all right in the end, I hope.
They came out all right in the end. You know, the beauty of it is both my children, when they were babies, we used to read to them, even when they were little babies.
Yeah.
And they're both still at, one's 23 on Sunday and the other's 27 next month, in July. And both of them are avid readers still. They love
Yeah.
books. And I think that was probably one thing we got right. We probably got
Yeah.
loads of stuff wrong, but that was definitely one
Yeah.
thing that we got right with them.
Very good.
Oh, and Monica, can we find creativity in some of the smaller things in life?
Yes. And I think the thing is not to make this another should. It's a natural way of being. I think that we just need to, if we get out of our own way, you know, I think it was Caroline Miss said that about stepping out of our own way, you know, and just listening to ourselves. Yeah, so I mean, probably more, it depends on our personalities as well, but some people would naturally, like myself, go a different way to whatever, to the shop, or just because I did something last week doesn't mean I'll do it this week, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's about, you can actually practice it, you know. I did get an article published recently on this, like just taking a different way to work, taking a different time for your, you know, if you are in an office for break or lunch, or make a point of talking to different people. And but I think it is good to shake things up a bit. And I've recently just started a singing class myself, and I think that's, you know,
Ah,
and I'm meeting interesting people, and meeting a Ukrainian woman who's joining the singing class and is a musician. And so I think the more that we can sort of step out of the sameness of our lives, then we will be inviting in creativity. Yeah. Often
which
I get
can
lost
be,
when I'm out. Sorry.
it can be hard though, can't it? Because I was raised in a forces family. So there was so much routine and uniformity in my life. And
Yes.
now I'm a little bit more relaxed, but I do like, you know, everything to be sort of structured. I like to know what I'm doing, and I'm getting better at not being quite so that much. But I think when
Yeah.
my kids were young, you know, the days that I was in the office, everything had to be set out and regimented in the morning. I suppose it was self-preservation in a way that I did that. But it can be hard, I think.
Yeah. So you're saying you weren't quite creative because of that family influence around
Yeah,
the, yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
think it's play to our strengths, you know. That's a very good thing. That's why you do so much successfully now, because you have that in you, you know. So I think we have to play to our strengths, and then find other people who can balance us out, you know, and bring the other, you know. I
yeah.
remember being on a walk with a few female friends one Sunday, and then the path was closed, and I just marched in the other direction. And this woman ran up and says, Monica, do you know where this path goes? Of course I didn't. But I didn't really care, and you'd still be all right. Clearly, she was the kind of person who needed to know where the
Yeah,
path was going. I had no idea, and I didn't really care. But so, you know, we do need people. Probably I learned from her, like, okay, I better tell the group that actually the plan is, and, you know, decide on a plan. I was just marching off. But, you know, so I think we can complement each other. We don't all
yeah,
have to encompass all the skills, you know. And some people are
yeah.
naturally more creative than others, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's you're right. We do need those complementary skills. And let's just finish off by, you have a free ebook that people
Yes.
can get hold of. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so it explains in the ebook. I explain a little about creative entrepreneurship, and it is sort of quite a new term. And as I said earlier, to me, it explains what a lot of people are wanting to do at the moment in their lives, to step into their own driving seat and decide what they do and don't want to do, and whether they really need a big car and a fancy house, or whether they really. My client says for us to go off and be a master rock climber in New Zealand. Why not? So the book explains a little bit about creative entrepreneurship, and then how it can be a lonely journey, and how you know, it can be really helpful to have support and meet other people who are trying to get into the driving seat of their own lives. So yes, so I mean, I run online, do one-to-ones online and in person, and obviously I have them in person here in Dublin, but I would also do online work as well, if any of your listeners are interested in that. And I'm on Instagram, so I'd love to have a few more followers. And the website is monicahaughey.ie. Monica, HAUGHEY.ie.
Well, I will put a link to
Perfect.
the website, a
Yeah.
link to the free ebook, all of your social media links, contact details, everything will be in the show
Lovely.
notes, so people will be able to get hold of you. And yeah, thank you so much for talking to us today, Monica. Really, really useful and fascinating subject. So thank you.
Lovely, Jill. Thanks very much. Great to talk to you too.
Great to talk to you too. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to this week's show. Check out all the links to the resources mentioned in today's episode and all my freebies in the show notes. See you next time.